talking about healthy lifestyle. Next week, God willing, I'll talk about a simple subject. It's still about healthy lifestyle, but I'll focus on a couple of chapters in Leviticus. It's on the subject of infections or infectious diseases, because you can be infected without knowing it, and so is that a sin? Uh, I told you about Arthur Ashe, a Christian, a born again black Christian professional tennis, won the U.S. Open, and I think he's the only black U.S. Open champion. And he was having a medical procedure, and he needed blood transfusion, and he didn't know. Well, during the time, the world is still ignorant about HIV, and so the blood that was given to him was infected with HIV virus. He died because of that. Well, he's born again. He's a Christian. He lives right. He's not promiscuous. That is infection. And we Christians, we are given health protocols in the scriptures. If you violate that, you can go through infections. Okay, my daughter is just telling me this morning that because she has been having problem with her throat, and because she said she will be singing at the house and it's okay. And then this morning she just thought of looking at the foam in the microphones. And she said, this is absolutely nasty. Obviously all the singers have been spitting on it and nobody's cleaning it up. It's called it's called infection, okay? So she has been inhaling all of this bacteria, and hopefully that will help her problem. But that is an example, and that is why, for example, in our bathrooms, we have tissue paper. The tissue paper is not for your children to play with, so they can clog the drain. For example, you have kids, and you cannot discipline your kids not to play with the tissue papers. And some people don't flush the toilet. Thank God we are not in Singapore. If we are in Singapore, you don't flush the toilet, you pay fine. Everything that you do, it's a very clean city. One of the cleanest city there is, if not the cleanest city. You spit and bubble gum, you pay fine. You don't curb your dog, you pay fine. That's why they call it a fine city, you know. By the way, when you wash, I don't know now, but when you go to the bathroom and you don't wash your hands, they have the soap there available. You also pay fine. They're very strict regarding these things. So I'll talk about it in detail, hopefully next week, because I think with the COVID thing, if there's one thing that we learn from them, it's the infection. Okay. By the way, the Congress already came up with the report. A lot of these things that some of us are very religious about means nothing. The masking, the double masking, they help nobody. The social distancing, they're just guessing. It has no bearing on what they don't understand what COVID is. And so this report is too bad, too late, you know. And that is what they come up with. So they're guessing, the scientific community is guessing on the solutions. But look at this way. If we can believe God that we will be healthy, okay, then it means that your immune system is going to be very healthy. Like for example, DJ is suspecting that the microphone, perhaps the bacteria there, but not all the singers are being infected. That means either the other singers have their immunity better than hers, or they are so used to it that they think they are immune to it. One of two ways, but either way, there's still infection. It's like in the Philippines, if something fall on the ground and it's not 5 minutes, we still eat it. It doesn't mean, and we say, well, we are stronger than those people who are very clean. No, we're not. We just became the habitation of this bacteria. And so it looks like we are stronger than others, but actually we're not. We're already infected. And it's already doing its work in our bodies. That's why we have to translate it in modern times as the food and the healthy habits in the Old Testament. How do you translate that today so that we can have a very healthy lifestyle? Because that affects everything that we do. And for several years now, who's this? Pat Robertson. He died, I think, around 90 years old or something. He's very healthy. He's even selling health foods and health supplements. And he really got into it. And he was showing how, even at the age of 70, he was still doing horseback riding. And so he died a very old man. And I like the testimony that he has, that when the Lord told him he's going home, he asked all his family to come to his bedside. And his grandchildren came to him. And the beautiful testimony that he has is he was able to pray for every one of his children and his grandchildren. And even his grandchildren testified that before he went home to be with the Lord, he was able to bless all of them. And I was listening to it, I said, wow, I wish that can happen to me, that before God takes me home, I can bless all of my children and my grandchildren. That'll be fun. That will be like Jacob. But he lived a very healthy life. On the other hand, my spiritual father, Lester Samuel, never exercised. He's got one of the biggest belly that there is among evangelists. Very unhealthy looking, but also live a very long life. And what he said is, the Lord is my health. And he lived it, and he likes to eat. And of course, in his latter years, whenever I see him eat, it's no longer like when he was younger. But the guy never exercised. Never. It's big tummy, but he still lived to be an old person. And again, his secret, he said, is the Lord. And so all of this is still a life of faith. But again, faith is obedience. If the Bible tells us about something and we don't do it, and we violate His words, then the health issue comes out of hand because we are violating His words. Okay, so those are the basic things we discussed last week. So let me read again our primary text, Exodus chapter 15, starting on verse 22. Then Moses led Israel on from the Red Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They journeyed for 3 days in the wilderness without finding water. They came to Marah, but they could not drink the water at Marah because it was bitter. That's why it was named Marah. The people grumbled to Moses, "What are we going to drink?" So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he threw it into the water became drinkable. The Lord made a statute and ordinance for them at Marah, and he tested them there. He said, "If you will carefully obey the Lord your God, do what is right in His sight, pay attention to His commands, and keep all His statutes, I will not inflict any illnesses on you that I inflicted on the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 date palms, and they camped there by the water. And so we asked the question, "What are you drinking?" And we went into the drinkable waters. And thank God for today, we have the technology to filter our water. And it's an amazing blessing. Israel have, I think, perfected the technology of making even seawater drinkable. Before, Singapore imports all of its drinking water from Malaysia. There's a big pipe that connects Singapore to Malaysia. And so Malaysia was supplying all of the water. Before China was in charge of Singapore, they don't like it because it was basically the dumping ground for all bad members of society, criminals, thieves. They put them in Singapore. It's much like Australia was to Great Britain. And then they gave it to Malaysia. And Malaysia said, it's too expensive. We don't want to maintain it anymore. And so they basically trashed Singapore. The one in charge was the father of Lee Kuan Yew. And when nobody else wants them, because it's just they say the only natural resources of Singapore are the people, nothing else, And so what happened was, Lee Kuan Yew's father, he started his reign there. It's a democracy, but it's basically a benevolent dictatorship. I mean, it was, if you are a criminal, I know a big preacher back in the days, became a friend of mine, Dr. Robert Lim. He's retired now, and I think he retired in the Philippines. He was telling me that he belonged to a gang, 5 members. And they maximized the wrath of the Singaporean government. This was during the time of Lee Kuan Yew. And so he was put on the wanted list, dead or alive. There were 5 gang members, and 4 of his fellow gang members were caught and were killed by the Singaporean police. He was the only one alive left. So he told us, he was so afraid, he surrendered and said, please spare me. So he surrendered, and he got born again. And later on, the government set him free, and he became a preacher, and the guy, he was still under surveillance. And the government told him, you better make sure you're not lying and fooling anybody. And he built one of the biggest churches in Singapore back in the days, in the 70s and the 80s, and became a phenomenal preacher. But he said the discipline that has to be in Singapore was such that he said that the office of Lee Kuan Yew was close to his church. He said one day, he said, there's a lot of police and government officials by their park. And so he went there, and he said, walked right in front of him was Lee Kuan Yew. And he was just doing like this in the public park, pointing here, pointing there, giving instructions. So he went back to where he was pointing, and he said he noticed that there were, in the park, broken pavers. He said the following day, there were construction workers from the government, fixed the thing within 1 week, it was fixed. That's how disciplined they were. But they don't have water. And so Israel taught them how to desalinate seawater, and now they have their own drinking water. And in fact, they have the most advanced airport in the world. More advanced than anything that you can see. Well, the U.S. is behind the airports already. Forget about the U.S. in terms of airport. We're so behind. Asian airports are better. And the airport in Istanbul, Turkey, is a lot better than any airports here in the U.S. But the most advanced airport in the world is in Singapore. Here how in the airports here, you have to have the ticket to be able to get in. The Prime Minister of Singapore, what he did was open a shopping mall in the airport. The public can go there. Now, it will not be approved by some of the parliamentarians, so he hid it. The way he thinks is so advanced, he said, the people have not thought about it yet. So he constructed it as an extension of an airport. Not everybody knows what he was doing. And then the mall opened up, and he welcomed the public, and then he told everybody, well, this is an airport mall. And I have been there, and it's a luxurious mall in the airport, most advanced in the world. But that is brought about by all of this discipline that they have to go through. But again, they don't even have drinking water. And then we ask the question, aside from the drinking water, how are we living? And so in the Bible, the prohibitions against adultery, fornication, homosexuality, and bestiality would greatly reduce any instance of sexually transmitted diseases. And I was telling you that in Corinth is like, if I'll compare the ancient Corinth today, it will be like San Francisco in New York. It's a cutthroat city. Everybody wants to be promoted, and the crab mentality is there. They talk differently. It's a very advanced civilization. It's a thoroughfare. It's a stop place during that time for everybody traveling. And so it was a very prosperous city. And so you will understand the strength of language that Paul used among the Corinthians. Why? Because they are Corinthians. It's just like today, if you talk to New Yorkers, they're very different. If you talk to the people of California, very different. But if you talk to the people in Midwest, like in Iowa, in Minnesota, they talk differently. They're more polite, they are more respectful. Oh, but I was telling you that New York is the only place that I have been. You know how when you're in the airplane and it lands, there will be an announcement. Please stay seated, fasten your seatbelt until the sign turns off. Not in New York. If these are New Yorkers, the moment the airplane, touch ground, and it's still doing its taxi, it's still taxiing, the New Yorkers will stand up, open the cabin. The stewardess are sitting down, and they start taking their luggages. And the airplane still, that's New York. Very, very different. And so, lifestyle, the government can't legislate morality, but the government have legislated so much immorality that it facilitates the transmission of sickness and disease. Right now, the big debate going on in the Supreme Court is whether parents should back off from giving their opinion or approval whether young children can transition. Now, can you imagine you cannot buy a cigarette unless, you're 18 years old? You cannot buy alcohol but you can transition into a different sex without this just doesn't make sense. All of this, they killed a medical report that guarantees 100% cancer for those people who change sex, because your body, if you're a male or you're a female, your body produces certain hormones for some of your need as a male or a female. And so the moment you transition, it confuses your body, and they can't produce. A male who suddenly became a woman doesn't produce the hormones that a woman have, and eventually, it 100% guarantee cancer and 100% guarantee death. But we are now living in a society where the government got into these moral issues that they can't legislate. Well, how we are living affects our health. The personal doctor of Kenneth Copeland, Dr. Colbert, he wrote a book on unhealthy emotions. And, the Bible says, be angry but sin not. If you are in a perpetual, some people are always angry. You don't have to do anything, they're just always angry. Their blood pressure goes up, and the moment your blood pressure goes up, I watched this from 700 Club years ago, immediately it kills some cells in your body. If you have a heart attack, if you are jealous, any unhealthy emotion, there is a jealousy that is warranted. If you grieve too long, that's why in the scriptures, even grief, there is a time, like 40 days. If you grieve so long and you can't control your emotions, it kills some of your cells. If you are under stress all the time, it's not healthy. We have to learn how to relax and those things. That's why the number one killer among executives, even among pastors, is actually stress-related, heart attack. Can you imagine? Who's this? John Austin, one of the men of God that was used in miraculous ways, had 4 heart bypass operations. The kind of stress that man had when he was alive is just too much. That's the stress that fathers carry. By statistics, husbands or fathers die early than the wives or the mothers. Say, why? Some of the women that we have right now, they carry more load in the family than ever before. Well, it's God's design. Men were created by the Lord to become head of the house. So even if they don't do that role as head of the house, they still have the anointing to become head of the house. And they carry the pressure. And now in modern day psychology, they're coming up with some of the negative emotions that plague these men, and that makes them sick. And so these are unhealthy lifestyles. And so we are promised long life by the Lord. Now, uh, we went into blessings and curses, and there is a promise that was given to us by God, and that is the promise of a long life. There are very few people in the Bible. Well, the first generation, well, maybe second generation, the eldest person who ever lived was Methuselah. How old was he when he died? 969. I mean, can you imagine to be that old? I don't want to be that old. Gordon Lindsay, when he was alive, I think he died in his early 70s or late 60s. He has a prayer to the Lord. You know, now we are talking about the dignity of life. And he told the Lord, because he's been ministering to a lot of people, he said, Lord, I don't want to be like these old people who died, who cannot go to the bathroom, they cannot take a shower, and they have to put on diapers all the time. And so Gordon Lindsay prayed a prayer and said, Lord, please, when I'm done with what I'm supposed to do, just let me go home. Don't let me die without dignity, he said. And so when I transferred my credentials to FMC, that's CFNI, and one of the associates of Gordon Lindsay was there and was testifying to the origins of FMC. And he said he was in the platform that day when Gordon Lindsay was already getting old. He was sitting on the platform. He was going to speak that night. And they called him. Our speaker for the night is Reverend Gordon Lindsay. And he was just smiling, sitting down with his eyes closed. And he was not moving. So he said, they called him again. And so they decided to tap him. Reverend Lindsay, it's your turn now. When they tapped him, he fell down. He was dead. Yeah. God took him home. Very healthy. But the Lord answered his prayer. He's already old. He fulfilled his mission. And CFNI, I still believe to this day, is one of the best training grounds for ministry that is available. But the Lord granted his request. So in the scriptures, Abraham perhaps is one of those people, died at around, 175 years old, 179, one of those. And the Bible says even his eyes did not grow dim, you know. Whenever I go to my eye doctor, my eye doctor will always tell me before, you have 20/20 vision. And so I'll tell him, 20/20 vision? I could not read what I'm reading now. And he said, and she told me, or they told me, it's wear and tear, sir. And they told me to prevent your eyes from deteriorating further, you have to stop reading. I said, well, that I cannot do. I can't stop reading, you know. And so the wear and tear comes to us. And so we know this, that after the fall, the human body deteriorates and degenerates as old age sets. Some of you have pictures in your in your younger years. You have all your hair. My kids will look at my pictures available when I was newly married. I have thick hair. You know, my mother used to say that parang alambre daw yung buhok ko nung araw. What's the English for alambre? Steel wool. Steel wool is what you use for cleaning, right? Because I had thick hair back then. Oh, but not today. When Joseph was doing the camera before, when he was still here, he will always tell me, Papa, don't bow your head. I said, how do I read? Like this, you know. I have to bow. He said, every time you bow your head, something shines in here. Well, it's called old age. I'm feeling physically the limitations that I'm beginning to have as I advance in years. That's called degeneration. Some of us try to fight. By the way, both male and female. We don't like the deterioration in our face, so we stretch it, you know. We apply all kinds of I think there's even collagen injection. We're trying to fight aging. But no matter how much you fight it, you still feel it. It's one of the curses that came to us. And Hanegraaff, one theologian, said that aging is the primary sickness of humanity. By the way, this explains why Sarah laughed. She was 90 years old. And the angel of the Lord said, the same time next year, she will be cuddling her own baby. You're 90 years old. So, will I blame Sarah? Can you imagine if my wife, I joke with my wife whenever she's vomiting, she's pregnant. But can you imagine if she really says, I'm pregnant? What? You're not just menopause, it's a menostop. It's no longer a pause, you know. So there's no way. The factory is closed already. So if somebody says, well, I'm pregnant, whoa, I'll be laughing myself. Abraham did not laugh. Sarah laughed, but can you imagine what in the world is going on? You know. But that is why Sarah laughed, and the Lord never judged her for that. So longevity, personal and as a nation, is linked in the Bible with covenantal blessing. We are promised a long life. Well, the issue is this. If Adam and Eve did not sin, would they have died? The answer is no. They're not supposed to die. And so Adam and Eve were created as immortals. You know, they have movies on the immortals, but immortal has a beginning and no end. Okay? Eternal life, eternity, no beginning, no end. And so time is a speck in eternity. And so Adam and Eve were not supposed to die. In fact, they have to learn how to get sick. They have to learn how to die. We don't know how long they have been on earth before they fall. But even after they sinned, Satan has to pollute their minds. I mean, our minds right now are so polluted. Have you noticed we don't even finish college, we become our own doctors. Somebody sneeze, oh, it's the flu season. Have you had your flu injection? No, I have nothing against any of that. But we diagnose already. Somebody's back ached, or somebody is having too much headache. Maybe you have a tumor in your head or in your brain. Our mind is so messed up that we self-diagnose on the negative element, not on the positive element, just negative. I was preaching in some Romanian churches here in Chicago years ago, and we were invited by this Romanian housewife to. She wants me to see their house. It's a big house. This was in the 90s, and it was already over $500,000. And I said, what do you do? And she said, I have my own work. And she said this, my husband is a truck driver. And during those times, business was good. I mean, you're talking about the Clinton years. Remember the Clinton years, especially in the second half of his presidency? The prosperity was just so much. And so she was living during that time. And she said this. She said, you know, I'm so blessed. I have so much work, and my husband does so much business. We're making so much money. And then she looked sad. I said, why do you look sad? She said, well, everything is so good. Something bad is about to happen. That's her mental outlook. I said, where did you get that? He said, I'm Romanian. He said, in our culture, if everything is going good, something bad is about to happen. I said, where did you get that? He said, that's how we think. Now, I don't know if all Romanians think that way this day, but I'm talking about the early 90s. And she said, this is my problem. We're being blessed so much. Maybe something bad is about to happen anytime in the coming days. Just so negative. Our mind is, Paul says, we have to renew the way we think. Because we prejudge everything now on a negative side. And that's why fear has so much hold on us. Now, the other promise that we were given as far as healthy living is concerned, now, if we follow healthy lifestyles, there is a promise in the scriptures on fertility. Say fertility. There is an amazing thing in the last election. 80% of the electors, their primary concern, especially among the Democrats, their primary concern is abortion. Now, can you imagine? This is the 21st century. If you want to have an abortion, you can have an abortion. I mean, I disagree with it, but you can have it anywhere. In the Philippines, when I was a little boy, I told you one of my aunts was a prostitute, and I know that she got pregnant, and I was we grew up in the slums, in the squatter area, and we built our houses. The house that we're renting is by the river. And when it's low tide, you can see the mud. It's black mud. And I was there because we always want high tide, because when it's high tide, then we can swim. And they called a midwife. They have a process, I don't know how you call it in English, it's called RASPA. What's the English equivalent of RASPA? Huh? What? TNC. Okay. There you heard it, okay? It's we call it RASPA. It's a nasty process. And so the midwife came, and after some time, my aunt came out with a shoebox. You know, I was like, what is this shoebox she was holding? And there's a tiny little thing, very black. I guess it's blood coagulation and everything else. It's almost like a dead chick. You know, I've seen a lot of dead chicks. I mean, chicken, okay? The young chicken, because chick has a different connotation. Here I understand. But I was looking at these things around this big. She put it in a shoebox. There was a little boy. I was wondering, what was that? And my mother motioned me, be quiet. And I remember they went down to the black mud. It's nasty and it smells. And she just buried that shoebox with this black thing by the river. And she was crying a little bit. And there was a little boy. I was wondering what went on. And my mother kept saying, don't ask questions. And so I asked my mother when nobody was around in our house. I said, Mother, what happened? And she said, oh, she's got an abortion, RASPA. Without a doctor, they just pull it out. They just pull it out of her belly. Now, this is in the Philippines. And so if you want abortion, you can have it. You know, there was a teachers' conference in the Philippines in those days. If you get pregnant without a husband, it's like a societal curse. You will be laughed at. That's the Philippines, not here. It's very normal here. But if you're a public school teacher in the Philippines and you get pregnant without being married, you'll be fired. You're not an example to the students. So my uncle was a principal during that time. So they were having a teachers' conference in the Visayan Islands, and this teacher, nobody can tell that she was pregnant. Well, it ended up that what she did to hide her pregnancy, she tied her belly while pregnant because she doesn't want to get fired. Very difficult to find a job in the Philippines. So she was able to hide it, and it still shows a little bit, and she was just saying, well, I'm having stomach problems. And while they were having a conference, she was on her 9th month. I don't know if some of you remember the bathrooms, the public bathrooms in the Philippines. Sometimes they'll put a bathroom by the river, by the sea. And there's just a slat there, 2 planks of wood, and you just squat there. Everything falls on the river or on the sea. And it was her delivery month, and she was having such pain in her tummy during the conference. She went to the bathroom and gave birth to a dead baby. She killed the baby inside. And 1 week later, somebody found the baby floating. Yeah. During the time, the moment they find out like that, the police, and they found out it was a teacher. They put her in jail. Yeah. Why? Because I don't know that. I think that America alone has aborted over 40 million babies. We have aborted a generation of Americans. The highest abortion per capita in the world of all countries, Israel. Yeah, that's the highest abortion rate per capita. That's Israel. You know, and in the Old Testament, I mean, if you hurt a pregnant woman and by accident kill the baby inside, there's a penalty for that. You know, but right now Israel had backslidden so much that it was the highest. Merv and Merla Watson composed a song. Essentially, they call it the modern day Holocaust because they have killed more babies than any nation per capita. You know, but look at this. I'll read you scripture. Exodus 23, 25. Serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. I will remove illnesses from you. No woman will miscarry or be childless in your land. I'll give you the full number of your days. You see? Can you imagine to be a nation wherein every married woman can be pregnant? That's a blessing. Now, it has changed in America. I think this nation have not welcomed childbearing because of prosperity. They want to enjoy their lives. Now it's very difficult for some women to get pregnant. You know, in the natural, you can explain it saying, well, you know, because we are very busy, we are stressed out. If you're not getting pregnant today, they say, relax, have a vacation. Do you remember when Israel was under slavery? They're under intense labor. But they are blessed by the Lord. The Lord already heard their prayer. What happened? It was during this time that they become even more productive. And they're getting pregnant left and right. That Pharaoh issued an abortion edict. That if it's a boy, then throw it in the Nile River. You know, or kill it or something. And of course, the midwives, the Hebrew midwives, did not do it for fear of God. And what did the Lord do? Bless them. And they have their own families. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12. If you listen to and are careful to keep these ordinances, the Lord your God will keep his covenant loyalty with you. Loyalty or faithfulness. As he swore to your ancestors. He will love you, bless you, and multiply you. He will bless your offspring and the produce of your land, your grain, new wine, and fresh oil, the young of your herds and the newborn of your flocks in the land he swore to your ancestors that he would give to you. You will be blessed above all peoples. There will be no infertile male or female among you or your livestock, even the livestock. The Lord will remove all sickness from you. He will not put on you all the terrible diseases of Egypt that you know about, but he will inflict, he will not put on the terrible diseases of Egypt that you know about, but he will inflict them on all who hate you. This promise of fertility and healing, God says, I will inflict this disease on your enemies, on those who hate you. You know, for years, when I was in the Philippines, I've read this article written by Dr. Robert Chung, the translator of Young Translation. There's a Young Translation of the Bible. It's a one-man translation. Well, I don't trust much those single-man translation. But he came up with what he called as permissive sense. And he said, now during this time, I have not studied that much. I have my two bachelor's degree in the Philippines, but I have not really studied that much back then. And his explanation was super. He was talking about the permissive sense, that whenever you read in the scriptures anything that says, I'll make you sick, or I'll do this negative thing. Dr. Robert Young, in his desire to explain it, he calls it the permissive sense. Well, I studied, and I kept studying, and it turned out in the Hebrew language there is no such a thing as permissive sense. And I will discuss this more later, but there is no such thing as permissive sense. It's, in fact, in Deuteronomy chapter 32, when he said, I'll make you sick, it's personal pronoun, and it's all God in there. I mean, I myself, you can translate, I myself will make you sick. Now, this is against the backdrop of the ancient Semitic gods and goddesses. Remember, in Exodus chapter 15, our main text, there are gods in ancient culture that heal. So one of them is Baal. Baal is also god of fertility and the god of rain in the Phoenician region. It goes from Syria, Phoenicia, up to Mount Carmel. There are 5 kingdoms sharing Mount Carmel. They worship there. That's when the battle against Baal was staged by Elijah. And there's a God of the harvest and all of those things. There's a God who heals. And God is saying this. He said, no, I am the one who heals. Nobody else heals. And then they have false gods that says, I can curse you and I can make you sick. Now, this is the argument of God that we can follow easily. In the book of Jeremiah, I think it's Jeremiah, God says, it's winter time and it's cold. So what do? You went to the woods, you went to the forest, cut a tree to warm yourself. So you cut one tree and you say, well, it's winter time, so I will fire my fireplace and use, but there's too much wood. So you only used half of the wood to warm yourself during winter. So what did you do with the other half of the wood? You fashion an idol, you bow to it, and call it your God who brought you out of Egypt. And God said this, there are no gods. How can you take a piece of wood, fashion it, and say this is your God? Now, let me ask you this. If you know sculpture, say you carve an image of a man and say it's your God. Because you carved it, and we who were in the Catholic Church in the Philippines before, we have too much idols. Anne has a sister. My kids got scared because she was married to an altar boy, an altar man. And they love idols. You know how we have feasts with this, that they carry idols, and there's a platform. They put it in their house. And they have steps going up to their old apartment, and each step, they have a big idol there. And in their living room, they have idols all over. Idols that are antique, size of a man. I mean, if you go in their house, in their apartment during those days, and it's dark, it will scare you. But let me ask you this. If you fashion an idol out of a tree, will that idol become alive? Will it talk? Will it cry? It's still wood, right? It's still dead wood. Now, if it's dead wood, same as this wood, can it bless you? Can it make you sick? No. Therefore, God says, I'm the one who can heal you, and I can make you sick. Some people are, oh, God. Well, listen, you know what Jesus said? Do not fear him who can only kill your body, but can also send you to hell. By the way, Satan can't send you to hell. God can send you to hell. But in that passage, Jesus said, fear him who cannot only kill your body, therefore he can kill. That's why in the Jewish law, only God can take life, because it is only God who gives life. That's why they have a death penalty, but it's almost impossible to to execute a victim in the modern day Israel, because they believe that it is only God who can take life, the sanctity of life. And so if that is the case, then this God is saying, you're afraid of this false God that you fashion with your own hand. They have no life. You made it yourself. How can they curse you? How can they kill you? I am the one who can make you sick. I'm the one who can allow this sickness to come to your body. And by the way, one of the ways by which you can avoid this sickness, if you follow my word, which includes healthy lifestyle. And so if you follow my word, that's why, for example, in the sacrifices, the Bible says the fat belongs to the Lord. When it talks about the sweet scenting aroma that goes to the nostril of God, it's the burning of the fats. You know, when they sacrifice the animal, they remove the skin, that's for the leather goods, and then they burn the fats. The moment the fat is burned, what happens to the rest of the meat? You eat it. The priests eat it. Some of the sacrifice, the people eat it. They call it divine barbecue. And so, can you imagine when they were sacrificing hundreds of bulls? That's the whole nation eating it, you know, and it's very healthy. So, one of the blessings then, if you follow the word of the Lord, is the ability to procreate. This is of the blessing that we were given before the fall. Today, man thinks that he has become so advanced and so sophisticated that he thinks that he can control his or her own body and decide when and when not to get pregnant. That's a problem. You see, that is a problem. Bill Clinton was, in the last election, he was being interviewed and he mentioned something about Riley, the one who was raped and murdered by this Venezuelan person. And Bill Clinton wisely said this. He said, if we vetted the immigrants, this would not have happened. And then he said this, we cannot, and he was the only one who became very honest with this. He said, we cannot stop immigration. He said, we don't have the manpower for workers. Why is that? Because Americans stop getting pregnant. Yeah. And now we say, well, we became sophisticated and we control it. No, in your natural mind, you think you became sophisticated. In the mind of God, your womb has been closed. It's part of the curse. You see? Part of that, that's why I always say this. When we ask the question, why do you work? To live. Wrong. We live by faith. We live by faith. You know, one of the things that surprised me when I first came here to the U.S. is the fear of being pregnant. I don't understand. I will see people who are about to be married. During the time, I don't have the official authorization to officiate weddings here when I first came here. So I will ask, when do you plan to have children? Oh, after 5 years, after 10 years. I said, why? Why do you wait? Oh, because we are preparing our economics, all kinds of reasons. You know, we want to enjoy our lives together. I said, it doesn't make sense to me. I was a new immigrant in the U.S. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense because I don't have the American mind. My mind has not been changed by American culture. I was not, there is no assimilation. You know, nowadays, from time to time, you will talk about they are not being assimilated. I don't know about you guys, when you first came to the U.S., there was no assimilation. Zero assimilation. How did I get assimilated in the American culture? Well, I studied American culture. That's how I begin to understand. But there is no assimilation. Zero assimilation. So if people are wondering, oh, well, they're not properly being assimilated. There is no program for assimilation in the U.S. Zero. So I don't understand that. Now, when I got married, when I married my wife, we have $167 in my pocket. But there was absolutely no fear on our part to have kids. I have 5 children. Yeah, 5 children. And most of you have more money than I do. But I have zero fear because I was taught that to have kids is a blessing from God. And I was taught, after I got born again, that now I have to live by faith. I have to embrace that. I like living by faith because of the poverty that I had in the Philippines. There are more miracles in the third world because if God doesn't heal them, they're just dead. They're just dead. Very, very expensive. Here you buy basic medicines that are over the counter. You cannot go to a pharmacy here and say, can I have one tablet or capsule of Tylenol? I mean, can you imagine going to Walmart? Can I have 2 capsules of Tylenol? The pharmacy will be looking at you, what are you talking about? I just need 2 capsules. Well, that's how we buy medicine in the Philippines. And by the way, we buy 2 capsules of medicine in a sari-sari store. The person don't wear gloves. He's smoking cigar or maybe chewing nganga, spitting on the ground. And he will open this bottle, put it in her hand, and put it on a piece of paper. Maybe rip a newspaper and put 2 tablets or 1 tablet of Tylenol or paracetamol in there. That's how we do it in those days. Here we buy bottles of medicine that's yours only, and nobody uses it. And then after some time, you change the medicines in your medicine cabinet. We don't do that in the Philippines. And so living by faith is a welcome teaching to me. I cannot afford it. And so I found out you live by faith, not by what your physical senses dictates. And so I have no fear of, and by the way, very few Filipinos, now the modern Filipino are beginning to be afraid to be pregnant also. But in the old days, my parents were 6th graders, 8 children. And my father was a porter and was able to send all of us to college. Now you have high-earning couples here. Could not send their kids to school. All of my kids are educated. Joel is the only one that is not in college. But soon, I think next year, he will be applying for college admission already. All of that, we have no fear. In fact, one of the regrets that me and my wife has is, why do we only have 6 children? 5 children. So we're looking for, I'm miscounted. And so we're looking forward to having our first grandchild. Americans don't think that way. The mind has been changed. But listen to this. You think you are in control of your life because you determine when you give birth. That is not a blessing. Because one of the blessings of God in the Bible is fertility. None of your women will be infertile. None of even your livestock. During the, how do you call that? Is that mad cow disease? I was in England during that time, and I was driving through the country. You know what they're doing with the vehicles there? They hose them with disinfectants, and then they killed tons of sheep, and they were burning them because of fear. You know the country that prospered the most during this time? One Eastern European country that was not touched by this disease, they are raising pigs. So the futures market in Eastern Europe just grew, and they produced some millionaires there because of this mad cow's disease. Futures market. Yeah. But here, the promise of the Lord is, not only will He make you healthy, also your livestock, and none will be infertile. That means you will have enough food supply that are within your control. I wish America can go back to just manufacturing to be returned here. Can you imagine even our medicines are being made overseas? I was in Nepal, and I was scared for Brother Willie. Because we subsidize global medicine. Most Americans don't know that. We subsidize it. And so Brother Willie found that out. And so people with diabetes and all kinds of heart problems, he found out that the same medicine, you will pay less than 10% in Nepal. Less than 10%. It's more expensive here. I mean, you will pay something like 20, 30 times more here in the U.S. Same medicine. And so Nepal is the same as us. Let me buy one tablet. When Brother Willie was getting orders from his driver, from his friends, who can't buy all of those medicine because it's very expensive, and he said, in Nepal it's very cheap. And so he was buying some of this medicine, and he was buying something like, I think, 50 capsules. It turned out in Nepal, if you buy that much, 50 capsules, you are already a distributor, meaning you have your own pharmacy. Because nobody buys that many. And they have a sale. If you buy this much, they'll double it. Buy one, take one. And so, Brother Willie will not buy it himself because he doesn't look like Nepali. I mean, when you're in the airplane and you're with Americans, you're sure. I'm sure. If you are in a Nepali flight, I am tall. Yeah, Nepalis are shorter than us. So when I stand up in the airplane, I'm taller than most. I like that feeling. And Brother Willie is Chinese, so he's taller than me. I think he's 6 feet tall or something, or 5'11". And so he cannot go to the pharmacy because you're Chinese, you're not Nepali. So he will send the local pastor, and he came back with bags of medicine. I said, where are you going to get that? Where are you going to bring that? He said, in my bag. I said, what if they think you're a drug dealer? He's got like a 50-pound luggage full of medicines. He said, this for my driver, this for my co-employee, this for me, this. I said, you're buying this for this 1 year supply, brother. I said, I don't want to be with you, because they may think I'm a drug dealer. But he said, because it's so cheap. Same medicine. Same medicine. Because we're subsidizing the rest of the world, Same medicine. But when you buy it here, it's 20 times more expensive. Buy it in the Philippines, it's 10 times more expensive. That's why we're wondering why our medicine is so expensive. We're subsidizing the rest of the world with our medicines, you see. So this is what's happening. But listen, and we say, well, we became wise and sophisticated, we control. That's what you think. But in the Bible, when our women is having difficulty getting pregnant, and I think this is one of the blessings that if manufacturing will return to the U.S., if all of this trade will take place, where are we going to get the workers? We need immigrants. And that's what Clinton was saying. We need those. You know what it means? It means we are not producing the babies that we need to produce. Our women needs to be pregnant again. So now, in the Bible, one of the curses is this. You will plant and somebody else will harvest. Same thing that happened, right? So now you have American couples who are millionaires, made their lives, no children. What do? They go to Thailand. They go to Africa. They adapt. So who is it who did not plant and will get the harvest? Those kids. Remember that Vietnamese professional baseball player? I forgot his name. That was years ago. His dad is an American GI, and fell in love with this Vietnamese woman, and he was raised as an American. He grew up here in the U.S. I think he was even born here. And so his mom, who is a Vietnamese, did not tell him he's Vietnamese. His accent. I mean, like our children. Have you heard our children? Our children talks like Americans. And my kids will tell me, oh, Papa, you have no accent. It's because she hears me every day. But an American who listens to me knows I have an accent. They're not bothered with it because they grew up hearing me talk. Well, they have American accents. And so one day, I think he was with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he was going to pitch. He was a reliever, and he had a bad day that day. And so for the first time, he heard the fans yelling at him, "You go back to your own country, you Vietnamese." And he responded back, "I am American, you Vietnamese." Well, he looks Vietnamese. And he said, for the first time in my life, he said, some people told me I'm not American. I don't look like, he said, I never thought of that. And so he hit a fans. And she got in trouble, he was penalized, he was told to go through therapy. And so one of the things he said is this, he said, they call me Vietnamese, he said, I better go to Vietnam to find out. And so he went to Vietnam, and he said this, I landed in Vietnam in their airport, and he said, for the first time in my life, he said, people look like me, their color is the same as me. He said, for the first time, I felt like I belong. Unless he opens his mouth, nobody knows he's American. Unless he opens his mouth. And he brought baseball to Vietnam. That's what happened, you see. But this is what I'm saying. We think now, even Filipinos here, we become so smart, I'll control how many kids I have. Well, in the Bible, that is not so. Now, of course, God determines how much. That's why you have to live by faith. You know, people say, well, I cannot possibly raise a family with one single family income. Well, too late for you to say that because I have already raised 5 kids. 3 of them has already finished college and are working. The 4th one is in college and is working. He's planning to go to a law school and be a lawyer. You know, Evangelist Greg Tingson used to say, "My dad wants me to become a liar." You know, but he wants to be a lawyer. He's making mine now as a tutor. But listen, all of them go to college on scholarship. Single earner. Because I wasn't born here, I don't have the way the Americans think. I got born again in the Philippines, I was taught to live by faith. When I came here, I got introduced to how not to live by faith. I mean, you get sick here, you call your doctor right away. Not in the Philippines. How many in the Philippines have their primary doctor? You tell somebody who's your primary doctor in the Philippines, what is that? Very few people have primary doctor in the Philippines. They go to a doctor whenever. That's how we survive. Oh, but we're happy. You know? We changed the way we think when we came here. That's why Paul said this after we get born again. Renew your mind. Because we stop thinking like people of faith. I mean, living by faith is not a mythical thing. It's as easy as breathing air. I mean, living by faith is as practical. Don't try to be theological. What's the best expression of faith? Obedience. If you're not obedient, you're not living by faith. If you're obedient to the word of the Lord, you are living by faith. You know? As simple as that. But some people are trying to make it sound mythical. Oh, I'm living by faith now. How did you live earlier on? If you're born again. You see, the American way of thinking has to pollute my mind. And then I struggle and came back to living by faith, thought life, as I have learned in the Philippines. And so, I encourage you guys, don't get caught in this American way of thinking, I control how many kids we have. Well, that's what Americans said, and now we lack children. And now we even have people who are raising dogs and cats, and they become the heir. Because we have forgotten how to live by faith. We want to control our own destiny. That's what I said in the last election. It's so sad that 18% of the electorate, abortion is their primary issue. And now society has been sacrificing babies to the god Moloch once again. In the Old Testament, in the ancient time, there is a god Moloch, and he's got this idol has iron hands, and they will heat it up until it's white hot, and then they'll put a baby there as a sacrifice. And we're doing the same thing in the abortion tables. Of course, we'll say, no, that's not the same. It's the same. It's murdering babies. Yeah. We become so advanced. We have many ways of killing our babies now. When a society is no longer able to bear children, it is a cursed society. During the time of, for example, Abraham in Egypt, one of the ways by which he cursed the Pharaoh was made him infertile. Okay? Fruitfulness is directly related to the blessing of God. I'll read to you the following verses. Genesis 1:28. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth. Multiply. Of course, we now said we have already multiplied. How did you know that? Who determines that? You know. Well, by the way, the Bible says, fill the earth. Is the earth full of people? I mean, you just drive through the interstate and you will find there's a lot of vacant land. What does it mean? Fill the earth. You see? We are trying to redefine and insert our own thoughts on the thoughts of God. Genesis 9 verse 1. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Only family of Noah was left, but they filled the earth. Genesis 12 verse 2. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Now, this translation says, I will bless you, I will make you into a great nation. Nation will not be an appropriate translation, especially in Genesis 12. It's actually family. Nations starts from families. I will bless you and make you into a great family. There is a German family in Michigan. I forgot the name because it's been a couple of decades when I was doing some of my doctoral study. And he said that they ran from Adolf Hitler because they're not Nazis and they don't want what they were doing, so their family was anti-Hitler. So they were basically annihilated by Hitler. And so few of them made it here, and they went to Michigan. And this professor said this. He said, our grandparents met. And they said, we're basically annihilated by Hitler. We need to multiply, or our name will be gone from the face of the earth. So this small family, I think only 5 of them survived, decided we will make sure that our line is not erased from the face of the earth. So they decided that they'll get married. These are 5 men, and they will have children. Now there is a town in Michigan, almost everybody has the same last name. They multiply. These are Christians. In fact, during the time he was being hired by Liberty University to become one of the deans. And just multiply. The Lord blessed them. One of the blessings that we are not recognizing right now is the blessing of fruitfulness. Genesis 22, verse 17. I will indeed bless you and make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky and the sand of the seashore. Your offspring will possess the city gates of their enemies. I guess one of the reasons why I have no problem having 5 kids was there are very few nationalities in the Philippines. In fact, my father used to tell me when he was alive, Jose, if you find anybody anywhere in the Philippines with the last name Nacionales, that's a relative. And I found one in, where was this? Cheryl. Iloilo. There's a pastor, Nelson Nacionales. And so I was talking to him. Well, he's dead already. But I was talking to him. I said, well, probably relatives, I said. He was not very receptive, so I dropped the topic, you know. Well, because he's got a lighter skin. I have a darker skin. So he was not very open to the idea, I guess. But my father told me this. Any nationality you find in the Philippines is probably a relative. Because we were very few. So it's in my head, I need to have boys. I was only praying for boys. God gave me a girl, you know. But I was only praying for boys because there are very few of us. You know, you have a daughter and they get married, they lose your last name. But if it's a boy, they carry the last name. It's changing here in America also. They don't want to carry anybody's name anymore, you know. Genesis 17:16. I will bless her, indeed I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will produce nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Genesis 17, verse 20. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will certainly bless him. I will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He will father 12 tribal leaders, and I will make him into a great nation. It's not only Ishmael whom God blessed. After Sarah died, Keturah, he married Keturah, and came out other nations, and some of them were in part of Saudi Arabia, part of Egypt, part of Libya, and they were children of Abraham. Genesis 24:35. The Lord has greatly blessed my master and has become rich. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female slaves, and camels and donkeys. Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master in her old age, and he has given him everything he owns. So look at all of the blessings of Abraham. Again, when God bless you, it's not only for you, it's for your family. And this is one of those things that a lot of pastors have forgotten. In the Philippines, one of the problems that we have with pastors is they think everything belongs to the ministry. And so they won't buy their wives and their children the things they need, but they will give you the ministry. If you have a family and the Lord bless you, the Lord is not blessing you just because of you. It's for the provision of the whole family. And so the way I do it with my family, I make sure that all of my kids' needs are met. If there's a leftover, that's where I give my offering. But I will not, if my kids are hungry, I'll feed them first. If they need clothes, I'll give them clothes first. If there's leftover, I bless others. Yeah, I bless others. Now, if God speaks to me, which He rarely does, in terms of things like this, I want you to bless that person. That is when I bless the person without question. But other than that, I'll feed and clothe my wife and my kids first. I'll pay my tithes. The moment I receive something, I cut 20% of that, and that belongs to the Lord. That's me and my wife's commitment. After that, the rest we live by it, and I take care of my family first. Because when God blesses you, it's for your family. It's not just for you. I mean, you only eat so much a day, and you can only wear so much clothes. What is it for? For your family, you know. And then to bless the work of the ministry afterwards, after all of those things. Genesis 26, verse 3. Stay in this land as an alien, and I will be with you and bless you, for I give all these lands to you and your offspring, and I will confirm the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky. I will give you offspring. All these lands and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring. And clearly, the doctrine of abortion and all related philosophy is contrary to the stated will of God. That's why the Bible is against adultery and against immorality. Because, look, even for a preacher, almost all sins can be forgiven. Have you noticed the most horrendous sin is sexual sin? Have you ever wondered about that? A preacher can steal, and the congregation will probably come around it and say, well, yeah. A preacher lie, or a Christian lie, and yeah, the moment the preacher commits sexual sin, and then, or anybody commits sexual sin, and then a child is produced because people look at it differently. Why? You wonder, why is it? Well, because you steal from somebody, you can pay it back. You know. But you make somebody pregnant. You are producing a person with an eternal spirit, eternal soul. Which can go to either heaven or hell. That's the value of it. Now, how in the world are you going to testify to your child? Now, of course, by the grace of God, they can be born again. But it is very difficult. A child lived right, and they look at you and say, yeah, you didn't. Can you imagine a thief telling his children, don't steal? Now, of course, you can teach it as a life lesson. And say, learn from me, I made a mistake. How many parents will do that? Especially among Filipino parents. Most Filipino parents want to present themselves as Superman and never making mistakes. I mean, just lie to their children. But if you make somebody pregnant, you are producing. That's why Paul said this. You know how in marriage, the two shall become one. Paul said this: you sleep with a prostitute, you become one with the prostitute. That's the same language for marriage. That's what God meant there. And today, because of the legality of sin, we think it's okay with God. No, the word of the Lord is eternal. It's not. It's okay with sinful man, but it's never okay with God. And one of the blessings that God wants is this: I want you to be fruitful and multiply. Now, God knows what He's doing. He knows how many. I have 5 kids because that's what God wants. Yeah, but I really wanted 5 boys. God gave me a girl. So I said, maybe I'll have 6 kids. But after the 5th child, I said, I surrender. I backed off already. I'm getting old because I married a little bit late. So I said, I'm getting old, too old for this. That's when I backed off. So, but that's just the way it was. We have to renew our minds again and go back to the blessings of the Lord. God knows how many children you can handle. Now, there are some people who are just ridiculous about this. They're like rabbits, Then that is wrong, okay? Because even in the Bible, you will find these periods of not getting pregnant. And they have biblical means of controlling certain things. But the modern man has forgotten the word of the Lord. And that's why I believe that when we pray for America, one of the things that we should pray for is for this nation to repent and go back to the word of the Lord and make our women fertile again. Otherwise, we'll look. This was in the 90s. I was teaching in Rock Christian Academy. It's now Tigil Christian Academy, and Hispanics, whites, and black students. One Hispanic student, a girl, asked me this question. She said, "Is there a possibility in the future?" She said, for a Spanish president, for a Hispanic president. And my answer was yes. But I said, I said, not now. And she followed up, "Why so, sir?" I said, because you did not value education yet. I studied agriculture. You did not value education yet. I said, you are coming around and you're coming up with educated Hispanics already. But I said, during the time, I said, no. And then she asked, one black student asked me, are we going to ever have a black president? I said, well, there's enough education among blacks. I said that we can have a black president already. And that shortly thereafter, Barack Obama was elected. Because you study culture and you begin to realize a lot of the scholarships that we have, they have learned. Not a lot of Filipino scholarships. Because we have prioritized, when we come here, we have forgotten the values that we have in the Philippines. We have prioritized making money. In the Philippines, we have prioritized education. We fly to America, we prioritize making money. There's a sudden shift of culture. In the Philippines, you can't get a student out of school. There's no work available. I'm going to school. I mean, if somebody is already getting old, are you in school? If they're not in school, they are a little bit embarrassed. Oh, no, why are you not in school? Totally different culture. So we prioritize. Our poor parents will do everything to put us in school. We go to the U.S., like overnight change. You go to school, I don't have to go to school. There's plenty of work. We switch. We immediately change the way we think. And we change also the way we think concerning families. We need to live healthy. We cannot allow this culture that is, I'll control my destiny. You cannot control your destiny. God holds your future in His hands. And there is right time for everything. We need to live healthy. We need to live strong, and we need to believe God that when He blesses us with a spouse, that we will be fertile and we will have the ability to have children, and by the blessings of God, continue to provide for them. But that's one of the blessings of healthy lifestyles. Now, don't be like those that, I need money. I'll buy some sweepstakes or lotto tickets and try to be rich overnight. No, not like that. God will give us the ability to make wealth. Same word, ability, power, dunamis. God gives you the ability to make wealth. So whatever trade we have, that's one of the abilities that God gave to us, to make wealth. God gave my wife the ability to make wealth. She can make money. Uh, she amazes me when she makes money. Basic ability that she has. She can make money. She can make more than I can. And God says, if you follow my word, if you uphold my word, not only will I make you healthy and strong and heal you, I'll give you the ability to make wealth. Amen. Well, it's almost 12:30. Let's all stand. Praise God. We'll continue tonight.